All right, folks. 7 o'clock Thursday, August the 10th, 2023. We're live, and my guest today is Shiloh Chappelle. Y'all familiar with him. He's been on the show a few times. John is getting ready for that Dippy Outdoors Kids Tournament, so he is going to be out of pocket. He don't have much service down there. He was unsure, and I called Shiloh. He said, hey, I'll jump right on, man. Good to have you, Shiloh.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. We
kick John to the curb a little more.
John's handling business. He's going to help out. They're expecting 100 kids down there, guys. And y'all let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. I've got technical on you guys. I got a microphone, a recorder, and all these headphones and stuff. This is all new to me, and I want to make sure that y'all can hear me and Shiloh. And
hey,
y'all give me.
That is a good thing what John's doing down there.
Oh, John's doing it good. He said loud and clear. Thank you, Corey. Corey's on here. Don Philpott, David Tartar. I guess I don't want to say his name wrong. I see him all the time. Chris Jesse, Jess Pratt, Bill Clark. Everybody's on here. Scott Seals. Good deal. They're starting to clock along, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. As I was saying, John is getting ready for that Dippy Outdoors Kids Tournament. So he doesn't have much service down there in South Alabama. He's a good ways down the Alabama and Tensas down there. Hey, Mr. Ronnie McKenzie, how are you doing, bud? Thank you, Tommy. He said it sounds good. So maybe I got to realize I don't want to get excited with this microphone right here because I am a loud person. So if I start hollering, I'll have to start backing up, and I will get fired up, guys. Shiloh and I've got a few topics we're going to go over, but if you have any questions, y'all bring them to our attention here, and I'll try to repeat them, and we'll go on through. Let's see. Matt Singley from Mississippi. Good to have you, buddy. Thank you. Corey said he's headed out in the morning to fish Oconee and Clarks Hill for the next few. You sorry thing. Yeah, I bet you will send me some pics.
I've heard Clarks Hill's full of them.
Yeah, he shared some pictures with me when he come to the trip to Seminole. We're going to have to make a trip up there in February. So
that's what I've heard. I've heard that place in February puts out.
They were wearing 18, 19 pounds Shiloh up there.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. That's insane.
That lake's huge.
I think they held a bass tournament there, one of the bigger ones, the MLF, not the one with the high-end pros, but like the invitationals.
The opens and stuff?
Yeah, and Kevin Rogers, he was there, and he was saying that he was catching some big crappie on a jerkbait.
Yeah, we need to go check it out. We need to take the Mad Adam crew up there. Heck yeah. I mean, it's kind of going. Hey, Greg Hammond, he said, what's going, guys? Yeah, man, we take the Mad Adam crew. You gonna get your boat back? You said next week, didn't you say, Shiloh?
I called them Monday. They told me it should be done beginning of this upcoming week, and I got the chance to go out Sunday, and I'm itching bad.
Yeah, you and Pentecost went out. Tim Pentecost went out, and
yeah, we went out on watch for a couple hours.
Yeah, you said you're getting ready to sink some brush, y'all.
Yeah, we got that Habitat Day coming up, the 21st.
Right.
At Leesburg Landing, so we're gonna be building habitats and then dropping a bunch of brush and everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, y'all done it. Did you do that last year?
I didn't. I had to work.
Did you? Okay.
But so we're gonna start trying to do it. Trying to do 2 a year. That way, that's awesome. Lake we can get some more structures in that lake than fish to hold on.
Right. I seen somebody talking about on Zeke Anderson Catching Crappie show that didn't have enough spawning cover in it. I guess where it silts in, it moves fish around. That. It silts in a lot. Yeah, we're talking about that a couple shows back.
Well, that upper end of that lake, and I say upper end, I'm talking about above the causeway, Highway 9. It's really silty. It's really bad. The maps are in some of the areas. Maps are 7, 8, 10 foot off. So it could use a lot of structure up that way, and then the lower end of the lake, a lot of the stuff that was there gets blown out by the current. So we're just going to replace a bunch of stuff.
We get a little rain in the spring, and like you said, when it silts in, it gets more pressure, and
yeah. Well, it's generation too, so they'll pull it for power. So, and they get a bunch of rain in December, and they're also pulling 3 generators. That's a lot. They're on that main river.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Let me make sure I haven't missed no questions. Let's see, man. We got 45 people on here already. Got a good crowd. We've only been on about 5 minutes. So, again, John can't be with us. He is getting ready for that Dippy Outdoors tournament, and they're getting ready for that kids tournament. Excuse me. Saturday, and they're expecting 100 kids, so they got a lot of preparation to do, and that's a great thing they're doing. They got a bunch of fishing rods, a bunch of giveaways. I'm sure he's going to be sharing some stuff. But let's see, Shiloh. Chris Jesse's got a question. Shiloh, I greatly appreciate you discussing your experience with bottom fish in the mud. What is your technique to catch them on live scope? It's a tough bite to nail down for me. Great question, Chris.
So when they're in the mud, first thing I'm gonna do is if they're moving, I'm gonna wait until that fish, if he's suspended up before he goes down to the mud and then sinks down in it, I'm gonna wait for him to come up a couple inches off the bottom. And once he comes up, then I'm gonna present a bait to him. If not, if he's just laying down there, I'm gonna try to set that bait right on his nose. I'm gonna try to get up on him quick, stomp my brakes, just drop that bait straight down on his face. And I'm gonna use most of the time a 32nd or 64th ounce hair jig. I mean, that's pretty much what I'm known for is hair jigs. I hardly ever use a plastic.
Right. So, you're using Pops jigs?
Yeah, that
Pops jigs.
That Pops jig.
What color is that? You always share with us. What color is that? You always say.
Pink. The majority, if I got a little bit of stained water, I'm gonna use Pink Moon. It's just a pink, and it's not it's not your normal chartreuse. It's more of a green tail.
Gotcha.
And then the other one I use is Teddy. It's a brown and yellow. Those two right there, that's about all I use.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's...
Now, on those clear lakes, I'm going to use, they call it Arky Shiner. It's more of a cream yellow with a gray tail. Looks more like a shiner than anything.
Right. So you're waiting that... You say you're waiting on that fish to get out of the mud a couple inches before you put a bait on his nose, or you're trying to get him to address your bait, like tilt up, or what are you trying to do, Shiloh?
So say you're out in 6 to 10 foot of water and you see that fish is suspended 4 foot down, and when you're getting close, you actually kind of spook him a little bit. He kind of takes off and he puts his nose down and goes down into the mud. If you are able to stay on that fish with live scope and you just sit there and wait for a couple seconds, he'll actually start to nose back up, just kind of come up off the bottom. So you spooked him and he went into hiding mode where he's going to go hide for a second. And if I've waited as much as 5 minutes for one to start coming back up. And once they come back up and they're already nosed up, you present that bait to them. They don't even have to, index on it. They just have to eat it. So. Right.
So you're trying to let him kind of calm down and get back in his element and ease up. That's a great question, Chris. I hope that answered. If not, man, you feel free to message one of us and we'll try to, especially Shiloh, and he'll go into some details. But that answers it pretty well there. Let's see.
Those fish in the mud are tough, though.
Yeah, they are.
A lot of practice. I mean, it really does.
Let's see. Waylon Bowder, he's got a long question here. How come crappie in the South school in some lakes and don't school in others? Some lakes in the South that we fish, the crappie school, but in Grenada, Enid, and Sardis, they don't school. I would think it's because they are white crappie and black crappie, but it's white crappie on Ross Burnett and they school. They do have different personalities in a lot of lakes. What do you think, Shiloh?
So black crappie in the winter, especially the winter, you can bank on them schooling up. And in the summertime, they hit that transition from winter to spring. They're going to go up, they're going to spawn, and they're not necessarily going to be schooled out. They'll be in an area, but they're not going to be tight. I'm sure you've seen it on the river, Shane.
Oh, yeah.
You'll pull up on a flat and there'll be 100 fish, but they'll be scattered out, 10, 15 feet apart. And then in the summer, they'll revert back to those brush piles and school up on that brush. Your white crappie are more, I would say, lazy.
Mm-hmm.
I say that, but they don't want to chase their bait as much.
That's exactly right.
They're going to try to get in that muddy water where when that bait comes by them, that bait doesn't know they're there. And they're using that mud as an ambush. So that's why I think they don't school up as much. They get out by themselves and they kind of ambush bait alone. And you'll get wolf packs of them. You've heard us talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
2, 3, 4 whites together out on Grenada, or I've seen it on Gunnersville. But that's really about it. The blacks, they'll hang tight together and they're going to feed on your bugs and real small shad. I don't necessarily think they go after those 3, 4, 5 inch shad like those whites will.
Yeah, those whites, like where I fish, Waylon, they get on that timber. It's usually a solo fish, and they're pretty aggressive. But like Shiloh said, they're only going to come out 3 or 4 feet and then go back. Sometimes you got to recast to them. till you hit it just right, or the profile, they get to see it just right. But to me, it's like white crappie are like a grouper in a wreck. They're going to eat something bigger and they don't move far. And to me, like the black crappie are like sharks. They're just they're hammering stuff,
yeah.
man.
That's why I think those whites like that muddy water better. They're able to get out there and suspend in that 6 to 8 foot and use that mud as covering, pretty much, you know.
Right. That's
So
exactly right.
that bait has no idea where it's going in that mud, and then crappie can sense them with their lateral line.
Yeah, they have two different personalities. That is 100% right. They really do. You know
every fish has their own personality.
I think you're right. Which fish do you prefer, as far as if I told you, Shiloh, hey man, I think you're a white fisherman, but what would you think?
I'm gonna go chase big whites around all day. Those are the ones that are gonna sink down in the mud, and I don't know. There's something about it. You can use a long rod on them most of the time. That's why.
Right. Yeah, I know you like a long rod, and you don't want to have to pick up the short and the casting rod. But you know, blackfish are growing on me when I get to go to Talcon, and we just visited Seminole, and the blackfish are kind of growing on me, and you get to see like those big blackfish you were catching at St. John's. I mean,
oh my God,
goodness gracious! I mean, tell some guys about it. Tell the guys and girls about that little bit of. We talked about it before, but let's talk about.
The place was unreal. There's no really good way to describe it. Our first day there, I've been to St. John's before, down in the Walika. I can't think of the name that's south of there, Walika and Astor area, and we had a lot of fun, but it was before live scope. And now that I had live scope, I wanted to get out on that river and learn it, but I knew the shallow mud lakes could have big fish in them. Our first day there, I think we caught one keeper, one fish over 10 inches from daylight to dark. The second day, we caught 5 keepers, one of them being a 2.5, and it was closer to the main river. And I did it all with a long pole on big blackfish. It blew me away. I couldn't believe I did it. And then our third day pre-fishing, I told Pat, my partner, I said, we're going to go out. We're just going to spend all day on that river looking at channel bends. And we caught 9 fish and had 17 pounds on 7.
I remember that.
Which is huge down there. And we went back to a different stretch of river the next day, and I think we did 16.5 or some sort. Mm-hmm. And I knew we were on something good, so we quit catching fish. I mean, I don't think we caught another fish the last 2 days of pre-fishing. We just marked areas that they were pulling in and out of, and we had some 70 and 80 degree days and 50 degree nights, and I was worried about those fish on the river.
Uh-oh.
Into the mud lakes.
There you go. He's back.
Yeah, I'm back. Somebody was trying to call me.
I got you. Yeah, it does interrupt you.
And Friday, the first day of the tournament, was brutal. Like, I had 14 pounds at 9 o'clock, and I went running my river spots, and I think I caught 2 fish that put me at just over 15. I think I had like 15.30 or something.
Right.
Day 2, we had a cold front that pushed in Friday night, and it rained, and it was like 33 degrees in central Florida the second morning.
Yeah.
That, you know how Talcon fish are when it gets cold.
Oh, yeah.
Another 3 hours south. All them big fish that were in them mud lakes pulled out to the river, and every channel bend we stopped on had 6 or 7 2+ pound fish on it. We left our starting spot at 11:30 with like 11.5 pounds. By 1:30, I think we had 1580 on my scale.
Yeah, I remember there were some giant fish y'all were catching.
Yeah, I had one last day of pre-fishing. I stuck one out in the river in the main current, and it was a 290 black. She was only probably 14.5 inches long. It just built like a beast.
Oh yeah, them things, they're so healthy and thick down there in Florida. It's, you know, and the crazy thing about it, I noticed you catch one 1.5 pounds, and he's rip and drag, and then you catch one 2 pounds, you can't tell the difference. No. As far as reeling them in, you really can't. They're both just dogging you.
Well, that was the best thing about it. So I was using a long pole, so I didn't have to.
Oh, they were giving they were digging on you.
I just had to set the hook and get them to the surface, and I was fishing in the current. So, but you get a 2.5 pound fish, 10 foot deep with a 2.5 mile an hour current. You're just praying that he'll come up on, next to the console or next to the passenger side to where your partner can dip net him real quick. Because if he goes back down, I was using a 64th ounce hair jig with a number 4 hook, so nothing was very big that was holding him. So I just had to pray.
You had to get a net on him quick, didn't you?
Yeah, and Les Stansteifer, he's got a pretty cool photo. After the tournament, he come up to me, he said, "You had a pattern down." I said, "Kinda." They followed me on day 1, and I sat down in a channel bend. And when I was sitting down in the boat, like once I sat the boat down off pad, I went up front, threw the trolling motor down, went with the current. He had just got his trolling motor in the water, and I set the hook on a 220, got it in the boat. Pat weighed it. I didn't even keep going. I just pulled the trolling motor up and went to my next spot. He goes, "You're not going to search the rest of this bend?" I said, "No, I know they're here. That puts me at over 15 pounds. I'm going to keep going." Like, right. I'm just looking at this point. I know what I caught. I've got enough to stay in the top 3 at least. So I just kept running my channel bends and looking, and, spots that didn't have fish on Friday, I didn't necessarily look at them on Saturday. And spots that did, that's why I ran the high percentage areas.
Right. Let's see. Matt Singley, I heard someone say that the LVS 34 worked better on a bigger unit, 16. I guess he's talking about 16 unit, and the LVS 32 worked better on the small 9, 10, and 12-inch unit. Is that true? Have you ever heard anything about that? We were just talking about this before the show.
I haven't necessarily heard that. Have you, Shane?
No, not really. I know some guys that still running the 32 with the 16. So
yeah, I've heard the 34 works better with the 86 and 8400 series compared to the 126, the 106, the Echo Maps, and the.
That's what he's saying. Yeah. The 8600, I guess the processor and the megapixels, I guess it's got more,
Yeah, the 86 and 84 series, I think the 7000 series, they have 3 processors in them, and it's got a little bit higher pixels, so per amp. Right. So you're able to, it's a little bit more clear and it's a little faster, which you need it for the 34. I think it helps out, but looking at it, it's a 30. Spending the money on a 34 and an 8600 screen worth it compared to a 32 with a 1222 screen? I don't think so.
Right. I think you're right.
I think I fish just as good, if not better, with my 1222 and 32 transducer.
Right. Let's see. We were talking about that. Since we're getting on that, we were talking about before the show, guys. I've had several people ask me, they're buying bigger units to put their console for side scan, and Shiloh and I were talking about Garmin versus Humminbird. Everybody was, especially most people that I fished with, they're like, hey, the Humminbird, the side scan, they've got the game down and, and all that stuff. But we were talking at last show and before, Shiloh, you've had a lot of experience with the GT56 and the 54 on the Garmin. So
yeah, I run a 126 Ultra. I think that's what Threadgill runs too. I think he runs several of them.
That's right.
I love it for mapping and side scan. I never played with it really much for live scope, but I bought it in a 56 almost, I think, about 2 years ago now.
Right.
And I dialed it in, and I can roll by stake beds at 80 feet, 100 feet out, and look at each individual stake with that 56 transducer.
That's pretty strong.
It's sharp. And finding schooling fish, I like it a lot. And then my 56 transducer went out on me, so Pentecost had an extra 54, so I stole it from him.
Right.
And it was really good too. I couldn't see as far out, but for Roman fish, like those schooling blackfish down at Tauplin and stuff, it was unreal. You could see them schooling blackfish 60, 70 feet out off the sides pretty easily, and down at the St. John's scanning along lily pads, it was pretty easy to pick them out with too.
Right. Well, like I said, people that are on the fence about buying a Garmin or, and Bass Pro Shop runs that selling those Garmins a lot. They probably still do.
I think they're still running the same one they had last Christmas. I think
exactly. So if you're,
the 106 for $1,000 still, and the 126 I think was what, 1,500.
1,500, yeah. So don't be scared of the Garmins. Like I said, they've got that new vision map. I've seen some of the details on it, and it was. It was just pictures and videos, but it looked detailed as all get out as far as the maps.
Big thing with Garmin maps I like is I can go in there and put custom colors in for my depth shading.
Right.
So I know what's what with my own colors. I don't know. Can you do that with hummingbirds? Can you put your own?
You can. Yeah, you can do it with hummingbirds.
You can do custom colors for can you change?
I don't know if it's custom, but I know you can put green to 9 to 12 foot and all that stuff. That's what I follow a lot of times this summer. Yeah, we can actually go into that, Shiloh. Tell the people, like, when you pattern fish and you're targeting brush piles or timber or any cover, and you know it's 9 to 10 or 12 foot of water, you go in your side scan or your mapping and you highlight that depth water.
Yeah, so I have a 1022 and a 126 in my console. My 126, right. If I turn it on maps, I'm making a run. I'm going probably 15 plus miles. My 1022, I've got it set with I think it's in 4 foot increments from each color. Red. Right. I think it goes red, gray, orange, blue, green. But when I've got a 106 and 118 or 8600 up front, when I'm live scoping, I'm looking at fish, pre-fishing, or just fun fishing, and I see I'm catching fish in 18 to 22 foot. I'm in this certain color. I'm not gonna, if I don't have to, I'm not gonna leave that depth shade. I know that's 18 to 22 foot.
Right.
That's where the fish are holding. I didn't see anything up in green, blue, or gray, but I'm catching them in orange. Why would I?
Don't try to overthink it. Once you got that graph set in and you find cover and there's fish in that, try to find that shade, that color. And if you look up the next point, you're like, oh, I see it's gray. If it's that depth or whatever color shading you have, because the most repeating of the repetitive pattern you can find on those fish, you're going to put more fish in a boat. I mean, Shiloh agree with me.
But you can do it before you even leave the house.
Right.
Come up with a theory. Okay, so it's March and fish are going kind of in a pre-spawn spawning pattern. You want to look on stumps and on flats that are in 4 to 8 foot of water. Go in there and set your highlighted area green for 4 to 8 foot, and then spend some time on those flats. You go over and side scan them if they don't have standing timber or you don't know there's stumps there. Side scan them, mark those stumps that are up there in that green, come back to them and fish them. You know that's what you're wanting to target. You have a theory, and I hope that theory gets proven wrong, and you have to figure it out on the fly. That's what I hope. Every time I go, I've got this, I'm going to go do this, but I hope it's wrong. That way I can come back out here the next time and keep trying to figure it out.
That is fun, figuring out the pieces of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. Like me, I was fishing at the Alabama River, and I found some cover. I think mine is green on my hummingbird from 9 to 12 foot, I think. I can't remember. It's not, and I just followed that green around that point and on that channel edge, and that's where I started picking up fish.
Roaming fish especially. When they get in a certain depth range and they want to stay, they want to suspend 10 foot deep, 10 to 12 foot deep over 14 foot. Don't ever leave 13, 14, 15 foot. Stay in that depth range and they'll be suspended 10 to 12 foot down.
You're right. Let's see. Amos is on here. Old Outlaw Rods. Appreciate him being on here. Chad Gillen. He's come on October. I hear you, buddy. It'll be here before you know it.
September. I'm looking forward to a Wally's tournament. And hopefully I can catch up with y'all Sunday in the booth, and I'm fishing Saturday.
I hope you're leading that thing, man, and you can come in there and sit down and talk to us. That's what I'm hoping. I'm going to share with you, we're going to be booth number 7 at the Crappie Expo at the BJCC. We're right on the corner. That'll give us some room. We're going
9 or 10 hours already looking at maps for that lake.
Right. That lake's got a lot of cover on it, guys. And
got a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff, and hey, I'm looking forward to it. The Crappie Expo, we got the 22nd through the 24th. Somebody asked in the comments before we got started in the show, I think it was Mitch Blunt. He asked. It's going to be September 22nd through the 24th. The CrappieKast crew will be there. Me, myself, John, and Jessica. we'll be there, and man, hopefully we'll have some T-shirts and some other things. And I've talked to Chad Clifton. I'm hoping we're going to get a Power Brakes display. We'll be able to you can put your hands on, and that's going to help sell those things, guys. When you spend that kind of money, you want to have the opportunity to get in somebody's boat and use them, or put your hands on them and see how they're built. And they're built very well. And like I said, he's one of our sponsors of the show, and hopefully we're going to have a
Sunday,
display there.
Yeah, Sunday that booth is going to be loaded with everybody.
Oh yeah.
Everybody that fished the tournament's going to be hanging out.
Yeah, I think Crappie Connection's going to be there. We'll be there. I seen the layout. There's a lot of couple boat dealers will be there.
Alabama Crappie Trail is going to be there.
Alabama Crappie Trail, their booth number 90. Keith and them will be there.
Yep.
So it's gonna, like I said, hopefully Shiloh will be in the top 5 or leading that thing, and he can get in the booth with us, and without giving away too much information. And
I know after that tournament, it's fair game. I'm letting it out. A lot of people they want to be secretive about their stuff, but I'm not scared to. It's fishing. It's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun. That's what we like.
Go out and catch fish.
That's exactly right. If Shiloh and I sit here and talk an hour, and it doesn't make you want to go get in your boat in the morning and go fishing, we're not doing our job. I'm just telling you.
Same thing goes. After the show, if we didn't discuss something, you could call or text either one of us. We're gonna
I get
John and Jessica.
Yeah, we answer stuff all during the week, guys. I mean, I talk to people every night, and if I have time, I'll answer questions. Like I said, this stuff I'm passionate about, and it's not an act. This is what I really like. Everybody that knows me knows that that's what I like. And Shiloh's the same way. John's the same way, and we have fun with this. Like I said, if we don't fire you up to go catch some fish by sharing pictures or discussing tactics, and hey, we're not doing our job.
Yeah, going back on to your the theory thing, learning everything.
Yeah.
You've lived here. I haven't.
No, you're from Illinois. Yeah, you're from Illinois, right?
Like the lakes I used to fish back home I never fished deeper than 12 foot ever.
Right.
If I was deeper than 12 foot, something was wrong. And coming down here, 12 foot's like 25 foot to me now, because I don't think I ever fished shallower than probably 10 foot down here. I never do. So every time I go out down here, I'm learning something new. You're
going to have to jump on the boat with me to go to Demopolis here, and I will put you in that 2 or 3 foot water. You're going to be like, hey, what's going on here?
That's going to be my style.
You'll really, I'll tell you what, we'll plan a trip, and hopefully there's old Zeke. I'm laughing at Zeke. He said he's fired up right now. Zeke Anderson, I appreciate you tuning in, Zeke.
I seen those pictures you posted the other day of Demopolis that you were catching them this time of year. That was unreal.
It'll blow your mind. It doesn't make any sense. Shiloh,
oxygen.
The oxygen, but it is where the fish preferred, and I think it's got a lot to do with those artesian wells and those springs, and it puts oxygen in there. And
back home, I had a lake in July. I never fished deeper than 4 foot. It'd be 100 degrees. I'm fishing 4 foot, 4 foot or less. That's where I was fishing. And I was catching them all out of the mud or just a foot off the bottom.
I got somebody asking a question here. Hang on, let's see. Tommy Pye. I'm installing the Garmin 106 from my live scope, but due to the design of my trolling motor, I'm going to have to mount it to the motor or somewhere else on the boat. I guess he's talking about mounting it on the shaft, or I don't know what trolling motor he's talking about.
I wish I knew what trolling motor he had.
Yeah, Tommy, tell us what trolling motor you have, man, and we can probably help you
Sure.
Suggest something in there. We'll get back to it. Let's see. Matt Singley, what length long pole do y'all use, and what's y'all setup, weight, no weight, jig size? Here you go, Shiloh, line size, etc. Describe your setup as far as your tournament setup, long rod.
Yeah, I'm sponsored by Jinko, so I run a X15 probably 90% of the time. If I'm on a lake that I can do it, that's what I'm using. It's an X15 or 13. And then I run 15-pound fluorocarbon with a bait caster, 1/2 ounce to 3/8 ounce tungsten weight up above it, and a 32nd or 64th ounce jig. Now, in the spring when they're running hard, fish are, like Grenada this spring when they were moving. John's talked about it.
Right.
I was using a 1/2 ounce with an 1/8 ounce plastic, a 3-inch plastic, big, just to get it out in front of them and really try to keep it in their nose until they've seen it. But here in Alabama, I run a 1/2 or a 3/8 down to a 64th or a 32nd, and that's what I use with my long pole probably 90% of the time.
Right. So you're running 15 fluorocarbon, excuse me. And what size weight did you say you're running above your jig?
1/2 ounce or 3/8.
1/2 ounce or 3/8. You're running 64th or 32nd hair jig. So
yeah,
that's your weapon of choice there.
Yeah, and when I'm guiding, I'm running typically an X13, just a 13-foot pole.
Yeah, somebody can handle a little better.
Yeah, guiding, you're not trying to reach out there that far. You don't have
right.
to. It's those bigger fish that take off. That's fine. You're looking for eaters most of the time. And that's fun.
Yeah, Zeke's asking, Shiloh, why do you use fluorocarbon over braid? I do the same. Just curious, what's your reasoning behind that?
I used to use braid. When I moved down here, I noticed fish got a little bit leery of it. The other reason is fluorocarbon doesn't sing like braid does. And you may know this, like you may have heard it. When you hold that braid out in the wind, you got that jig head in your hand, you hear that high-pitched kind of noise and that vibration that braid's putting on. And I think when you're running that 1/2 ounce weight or 3/8 ounce weight and you're putting it down there and that wind blows and it makes that little bit of noise.
You think it's
traveling.
I'm trying to look. You think it's transferring through the water? I mean, I'm trying to look for the word, but
that braid's so sensitive. I think it transfers down into the water, whereas that fluorocarbon doesn't do it as much. The 15 pound is just what the fish get. They let me get away with, so I use it.
That's a good tip because, I mean, you think of it, if you've got a pretty substantial weight on the end of that line, it's like a guitar string and it's carrying that vibrate. That makes sense, Shiloh. I could see that.
Yeah, it's a little stuff outside the box like that's what I think of.
There you go, Zeke. I'm glad you asked that question, man, because I haven't thought about it that way because I've got those cornfield fishing gear rocket launcher rod holders, and when I set those rods in there, especially the long ones, you can hear that zzz, it's just a whistling.
And it doesn't have to be much, but when it's down there in the water, I can't remember how many times it echoes, but water enhances sound so much, and that little zzz on the braid, those fish could hear it 5-6 feet away probably.
Probably right. Never thought about that. Appreciate you asking, Zeke. That's a great point that we've never discussed on here. Aaron Knight says, if you tell us all that, Shiloh, who wants your waypoints on here? Oh, goodness. Shiloh froze up there again. Let's see. Shiloh froze up on us. Maybe he'll be back. I don't know if he got a call or something. Sometimes, guys, when people are using their phone, there you are.
I'm back.
There you're back.
My Wi-Fi cut out. Aaron, I seen Aaron ask a question. What was he?
Yeah, Aaron was saying after you tell us all that, Shiloh, put your waypoints on here as well.
He's funny. What's really funny about that is, so at the river for the championship tournament, I was in a spot and I was running a ledge and I heard a boat coming down the river and they made that sharp corner and I was like, that's a black phoenix right there. I bet you that's Sean Deese's boat. And I looked up and Aaron's got this big old grin like, uh-oh, you found what I found.
All right.
That was like noon the first day. I do want to give props to Aaron, and I'll tell him this every time I see him. We kind of stayed our separate ways Saturday, and he let me have the creek that I was in. And I mean, I really don't know where he was at, but I went and fished a different hole for a little bit Saturday. And as I was leaving it, he was coming in it, and I kind of laughed and said, we had a lot of the same stuff marked, I think, but he's from there. He knows that river very well.
Oh, yeah, that's his home water there.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I could get in a boat with him for a day down there. I think it'd be a lot of fun just to learn what he sees on that river.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Tommy Pie, he's answering. He asked earlier. He said he got a Minn Kota with a spot lock. Doesn't allow me to put it on the shaft. So he must have a Tarova or something, Shiloh.
I think Cornfield still makes them out for the Tarova, don't they?
They do. They make that one that goes out in front. I've seen that.
When I started, I actually used Tarova, so I ran a cornfield mount. I welded a bolt to a 6-inch pipe by an inch wide or inch round, and I actually stuck my live scope to it, and that's how I ran my live scope on a Tarova the first year. I ran a remote with a 16 or 15-foot pole, and I chased them around like that.
There you go. You got to adapt, you know.
And then when I got the Ultrex, I was like, this is so much easier.
Oh yeah.
I had both my hands.
Yeah. Somebody's sharing that Cornfield has a great mount for that. Tommy, they do. I know Big Daddy had a mount like that. Matt's asking Zeke right here. Zeke, if you can answer in the comments there, buddy. He said, Zeke Anderson, what pound test do you use? And do you use high vis? And Shiloh, are you using high vis or just straight fluorocarbon color? Just clear?
Just straight clear fluorocarbon.
Just straight clear, okay.
On my casting poles, I've got some K9 6-pound high vis on there.
Right. There it is.
I also run 6-pound red label Cigar too.
Thank you, Zeke. Zeke answered right there. Zeke answered right there.
I am a fan of using 4-pound on my casting poles too.
I've seen that. That's what you done down in state championship, right?
It was. I was using real light 4-pound clear line. And when I would cast, I'm like, I don't, other than the rings, I'm like, I really don't know where it's at right now. Other than seeing it on the screen.
Let's see. Candace and Derek Sykes. What's y'all's thoughts on stick steering boats for live scoping? Don't hardly ever see that like the all wells at Andalusia Marine. If you're fishing a solo man up front, there's nothing wrong with it. What do you think, Shiloh?
No, I think it'd be perfect. Honestly, if I didn't tournament fish and I didn't need a big glass boat like I've got, I don't know why it wouldn't be a great option. You don't have to get up from the back to go up to the front. Your live well's right there. Your trolling motor's right there. Your graphs are there.
Yeah, you're there. Like I said, I've fished out of them. If you're just fishing solo up front, there's nothing wrong with a stick steering boat.
No.
Especially if you're not agile and can't move around. I mean, that's what those boats are set up for.
Yeah. I mean, you could run it with a hydraulic pedestal if you want up front. You can get it where you're sitting down, and when you get to where you want to fish, you could jack that pedal up and kind of use it as a leaning post and have your live scope right there as well.
Right. I fished out a couple of those, a Rhino and stuff. But I know those all-well boats at Andalusia Marine, they're one of the sponsors of the show down there. And one of John and Jessica's, they make those all-wells are nice, man. But like you said, as far as if you're not tournament fishing, you're just set up solo fishing up front, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, some of those boats down there that Andalusia's got are pretty sweet stick steers.
Oh, yeah. So. Let's see, make sure I haven't missed any questions. Somebody was asking something about some mud fish or something. Let me see. Let's see. Chris Jesse, he asked a question earlier. I know I've already asked about the mudfish, but would like to ask what % of whitefish that you catch come out of the mud versus open water whitefish?
I'd say that the whitefish that are out in open water were in the mud at one point.
Right. They've come out of it or went down in it sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I found areas, and this goes on the timing, stretches of, it might be only 200 feet by 20 feet wide that have, I may have been there the day before at noon and caught, a couple pound 50 to 2 pound fish. And then I come back the next morning and there's nothing there. And I come, first thing in the morning, I come back, there's nothing there. Well, I think them fish are really just laying there in the mud. And you come back around that.
I've experienced that several times.
Come back
went through some standing timber and it's a ghost town, and turn around after the sun comes up and I catch my limit, 30 fish there. And it's I
think there's a lot more fish that lay in the mud than we realize.
And especially live scope has brung that to our attention. I mean, for sure.
I think they can get down in that mud and we never see them. We just go right over the top of them. Side scan, live scope, it don't matter.
Right. Yeah. You just wouldn't
blend in so well down there that
unless you actually physically see them go down in there and settle. Let's see, Kevin Hicks. We were talking about this earlier. Shallow. Do you prefer a hair jig over plastic? You can answer that. I know you said something about it earlier. So
it's a lot more subtle. That's my big thing. It doesn't. If I want to make the fish see it, and when he does see it, I don't want to sit there and have that plastic flopping in his face unnaturally. I just want it
you
to be
want that
subtle.
thing pulsating like a hair jig. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and a lot of times I won't even jig. I'll just take my index finger when I'm holding that rod. If I've got him looking, I'll just take my index finger and just tap the rod just enough, and that puts out a shock down that line that just makes that jig pulsate a little bit. Maybe give it a half inch of movement, which will trigger that bite.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Shallow. I ran into a brush pile that had probably, I'm going to say 20 crappie, and they were pound and quarter fish, nice just keeper fish. And I took my long rod and dropped it in there, had a 30-second plastic, and, I couldn't get them to even react to it. And I literally laid it rod and picked my casting rod up and ran it through there, and I snapped my rod, and one of them kind of darted out of the way, and then he ran out there and ate my bait. I mean, it was crazy, like I pissed him off or something. It was just
well, you moved him. You got him, and they may have been in that brush pile under the shade, or under the shade, just a little bit under a stick where he couldn't have seen your bait.
right.
But he felt it on that lateral line, and you got him away from everything,
Right.
And he didn't have a buddy tapping him on the shoulder saying, "Hey, that's fake." And he just ran out and ate it.
Right. I was curious about. I couldn't. I tried to pick up I caught a few fish on my long rod, but I casted to them and, would snap my rod right when I got in the middle of those fish, and they would kind of dart out of the way, like you said, and then some of them would run out a couple feet and grab it.
Next time you do that, put a 64th on your long pole and pitch at them at 15, 16 feet, and if you get one to follow, just drop your rod tip. Just drop it.
I got you. Well, that's a good tip. Like I said,
that hair jig will float for half a second right in their face, and he's already following. He's got two options: either eat it or duck. So
right.
I've had that happen a lot.
Yeah, I'm using a long rod. I'm starting to use it. I've got an X15. I've got a bonehead toothpick, a 16-foot toothpick. I'm playing with, and I still revert to casting a lot. But I started playing with them, on those brush piles and trying to make them move, and I'll figure it out slowly. But talking to somebody like you that prefers that way,
that long rod's it takes a while to master. I mean, it really does.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%.
It takes patience. It's a lot of troll motor work, I should say, because when you see, when you're casting, you see those fish out there 40, 50 feet.
Right.
You don't have to. You stomp your brakes and you stop, and then you're just firing away. That long rod, when that fish is 8, 9, 10 foot from you, and you're chasing him, and you make one wrong move, he's gone. And
you're right.
You've now got troll motor on 7, and you're chasing him. And
right.
He's down in the mud, he's cutting left, or cutting right, and that's a lot of it, and smashing the brakes. So.
Oh yeah. I ran into several fish that done that, and then I actually went and looked at some stuff and come back, and the next cast I made, one just screamed off of there. You're like, I mean, it's just they're so crazy at timing. You're exactly right.
And not everybody's hungry at the same time.
You're exactly right. And this time of year you got to cover a lot of water, to catch any substantial amount of fish. So
that tournament I won on the river, there was 9 or 10 brush piles on a ledge and a couple stumps, and I just kept going back and forth. If I looked at my tracks on that ledge, I bet I went over them 100 times both days, but I knew the fish were there. It was just, I may have hit this pile, the first 4 piles, and not caught a fish, and in the 5th, 6th, and 7th pile, I caught one. And then I got down to my 10th one and turned around, and I didn't catch anything on the, 5th, 6th, or 7th pile, but I caught one on the last 4 that were the first 4 that I didn't catch anything on. So,
I revert, back to Kevin Van Dam. Probably he just retired. He's the greatest bass fisherman ever. I used to watch him as a kid growing up, and he wouldn't go to these places with stumps and these flats till 10, 11 o'clock. He knew exactly what time those fish would react to his crankbait or square bill or whatever he's throwing. And I think crappie's the same way. There's a certain time that those fish are going to be active, and you just don't. It changes all the time, especially in a river system.
Yeah, that's how it was there at the river. Right there in front of Swift Creek boat ramp. No one knew it. Right? They may have known it, but first thing in the morning, I dropped the troll motor at start time, I think 40 feet from the boat ramp.
Right.
I was just where everybody was launching and turning around, just where they were turning around is where I dropped the trolling motor. And I had a 180 and a 140 from there on the flat right in front of Swift Creek boat ramp.
Right. I know exactly where they is.
And on the second day, I caught my last fish. I spent both mornings first thing in there, or the first morning in there first thing. The second day, I started in my creek that I was fishing. So just because I thought I could catch a couple, I had some big blackfish in that creek. I thought I could catch a couple of them first thing in the morning before the sun got up. I wasn't able to. Our first fish day 2 was a 194, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very first cast. And it makes you kind of sick to your stomach when you do that 631.
Yeah, you're like, oh gosh, what kind of day I'm gonna have? I caught the big fish right off the bat,
I immediately told Tim, I said, it's either going to be really good from here out or it's going to be absolutely terrible and we're going to have like 8 pounds. Good thing was 10 minutes later, we pulled up on another pile and caught a 184. So
that's exactly right. Yeah.
So you told him,
you had the right plan. I mean, you told me, how many hours did you look at mapping before you went? It was something crazy. I remember.
Way too many.
Way too many.
And I get a kick out of it, but John called us our second day down there. Tim and I got down Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. It might have been Tuesday.
All right.
That's right, because the tournament was Friday and Saturday. We got down Tuesday, and we fished till 4:30, 5 o'clock, and went and ate. Wednesday, we put on the water the same time John did, and he called us, I think, at 7 o'clock and said, hey, you guys all right? I'm like, yeah, we're fine. We're still out here looking. He goes, you guys put some effort in, and I don't think we got back till after dark. And we come in and give props to everybody we stay with. They had dinner cooked and everything. And
right, y'all have a good group of people that stay together there.
Yeah, we have a great group that we travel with.
That makes the the fellowship and the tournament stuff that much more fun. That's what this crappie community. We say it a lot on every show. It's a huge sharing community. It's a bunch of fellowship. It's still competition. Don't get me wrong. And when it comes down to it, but it's still a lot of sharing and a lot of like I said, a lot of fellowship and
we're all able to be friends when we get off the water. That's the thing.
Exactly right. Yeah.
If John, I was in second after Friday. If John would have called me Saturday at 10:30 and been like, hey, I'm broke down and here's where I am. Can you come at least pull me a Swift Creek ramp? Yeah, of course. No problem at all. I don't have any problem doing that because I'm not going to let him be out there stranded.
No.
It's a tournament, but we're still friends, So.
Oh, yeah, that's the end of the day. That's exactly right. That's what y'all started out as when you started fishing, and that's exactly right.
Yeah. And after the tournament, when I told John where I was at and what I was doing, he goes, "How the heck did you find fish in there?"
Yeah, exactly. So it was totally off the wall compared to what he was checking. So that's
Jonathan Phillips goes, "Why'd you even go in there?" No one.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Jonathan and see if I can get him on the show.
He'd be a great one to have.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to him.
You gotta get his son on with him too.
Oh yeah, we can try to work that out.
Before long.
Oh yeah, he puts his time in. Matt Singley's got another question here. Let's see. On these hot summer days, are y'all downsizing baits, or do y'all start out with big baits then adjust to what they want?
Yeah, I'll let you start this one, Shane.
Yeah, I've got a certain 1.5-inch bait I'm throwing right now this time of year anyway. Matt, I'll throw that little 1.5-inch bait till about first or second week of September, then I'll start throwing some bigger baits because a lot of your shad fry are starting to grow. You'll start seeing them in the water, physically seeing them, because those fish will start spitting up 2-inch baits, 3-inch baits. As your brim are growing, the shad are growing, your little bass fry are growing. But I'll start off with an 1.5-inch bait, and if I start seeing bigger shad in the water flashing around, or the fish are being real aggressive at my jig, like if they're swallowing that 1.5-inch bait down their gullet, I'm like, oh, I'll step it up to a bigger bait because I can I can be more aggressive with that bigger bait. What about you, Shiloh?
So I do it different most. I start off really small. Most of the time I start off with a 64th, which is maybe an inch and a quarter long. And if I notice that they're eating it real good, then I'm not going to switch. I have a lot of confidence in that.
Right. There's no sense in it, actually.
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in it. Now, if I think that fish is having trouble seeing the bait or feeling it, I'll start moving up to my 32s. You know, if I feel like the fish are starting to see it, then I'll go up to 16th with a plastic. Or like you said, when they're real aggressive.
That 64th, though, like you're throwing, when that fish does that little suck, they trying to suck that bait in, they'll get that 64th just in the water intake, won't they?
Yep. The 64th with a number 4 hook is, you know, when you have a real short, stubby hair jig.
Right.
When they go to just barely nip it, they get just enough of the hook to really bury it in. And that,
right.
I figured that out on Wren Lake in Illinois. We had that problem really, really bad one year.
Right, short striking or just kissing your bait or whatever you call it.
I downsized all the way to a trout fly. It was no bigger than your fingernail.
Jeez.
And I think it had a number 10 hook on it.
Mm.
Day 1, I had like 7 pounds. Day 2, I think we came in with almost 11 in September.
That's a big deal up there.
Yeah.
Blackfish too, right? Blackfish, I guess.
Oh no, whites.
Oh, whites. I'm thinking rand or anything.
I didn't get to play with a bunch of blackfish back home, so it's been a huge learning curve for me down here. Is learning how those blacks react to the stumps and summertime.
Oh yeah. They're totally different.
Yeah.
Make sure I didn't miss any questions, guys. I appreciate all the questions. We had 70 people on here. Scott Seals, we're talking about downsizing bait. So, are you feeling that bite or seeing it more shallow?
Seeing it a lot of times.
You're seeing that fish come up and.
Unless they're smoking it, I have clients all the time. I'm sitting there telling them set the hook, and first thing in the boat, normally I tell them, hey, trust me. When I tell you to set the hook, 90% of the time he's got it.
Right.
And when they set the hook, they're like, how did you know he ate that? Because I never felt anything.
Right. A lot of people wait for that big thump like they feel in the spring, you know, that boop.
Yeah.
And you don't get that a lot of times in the hot summer, guys.
No,
your rod will load up. You'll feel some weight, kind of like a flipping bite.
Even real big fish in the winter, they won't, you know, they may hit it hard, but there's a lot of them when I'm using
You're exactly right.
They'll just barely grab it.
And, you know, guys, the guys that's bad fished and flipped in grass, and you get that uneasy feeling when you pick that weight up. You're like, man, that feels like a fish. And you better lean back, or at least reel hard and lean back. It doesn't cost anything.
Feels spongy. It feels spongy. That's what it feels like.
That's exactly right. You know, you're kind of like, man, that. And we were fishing some standing timber, Travis Powell and I, and there were 2 good fish. And I seen them too late, shallow, and I went over the top of them, and the water stained, and I backed my trolling motor up. I didn't have my power brakes down at the time, and I just kind of glided over the fish. And I turned around, and both of those fish, you know, I said, man, that's a good fish, Travis. So Travis threw. The fish come out and set on it. I seen his rod bend a little bit. I said, hey, man, set the hook. Well, I don't feel him. And then the fish had dropped the bait, and then I caught a 189 right there with it, and the fish he had was bigger than that. Yeah, I was like, hey, man, if you feel any tension on that, I can tell it's not in the timber.
That's one, like, I'm sure you've done it, Shane. You know, at the end of the day, you get tired of saying left, 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 or right, right, right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of problem with that. I'm pretty much tired of saying set the hook, set the hook, set the hook. Because a lot of
well, you know, it's so funny. When you're guiding with people, you want them to be successful, and you're trying to teach them, and you'll get fired up, and it sounds like you're barking orders at them. Like Big Daddy went with me, and he said I sound like his PE teacher. You know, I was just trying. I want him to catch the fish, and I'm getting anxious about it, and I want him to, you know, and Lord, he's learned. He's a good crappie fisherman now with a live scope. He's always been a good crappie fisherman, but now he's proficient with a live scope. And
I love teaching people, you know, people that haven't been out. I love teaching them what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it. And a lot of them they'll ask me, you know, why aren't you spending more time on those fish on that one stump? Well, we caught the active fish off of it, so we're gonna go. I want you to catch fish all day. I don't want to sit here and, you know,
right. You're not gonna learn anything with it. That's exactly right.
I don't want you to sit here and work for 2 extra fish that aren't active on a stump. I want you to have fun and keep catching fish.
That's right.
And I tell my clients before they even get in the boat, I said, I'm not catching the fish for you. I'm not doing it. I want you guys to catch fish.
That's exactly right.
How.
That I tell people there's a fine line too, you know,
Yeah.
Shallow, if they catch 30 or 40, they learn a ton. If they catch 100, they're not going to learn much. They're reeling in fish, you know. So
Yeah. I want them to learn a little bit, catch fish. And if they get frustrated with one and they tell me, you catch it, I'm going to catch it, but I'm going to show you how I did it.
exactly.
I'm going to show you, okay, well, I'm going to approach this fish from this angle. And when he starts to look, or if he's not looking, I'm going to tap the rod aggressively with my offhand. And once he starts to notice it, I'm just going to dead stick. And when he
That's
looks,
right.
I'm going to ease up real slow. And after that next fish that's being difficult, I notice they start trying it, trying those little things. And
That's right.
that's what makes it great at the end of the day is when they go home and they're like, hey, I learned a bunch.
I've had several trips, Shallow, where they never picked up a rod. They just watched me the whole day.
Yeah.
And they wanted to watch me walk my bait casting to these fish,
Mm-hmm.
want to know when I'm twitching my rod, why I'm twitching my rod, why I'm doing this. And then, hey, William Bird, I think he went out with me one trip, but he didn't pick up a rod. And then he booked another trip, but the next week he sent me pictures where he went out and caught 20 fish. He's like, hey, and I was like, man, he said, I was paying attention. I didn't just sit there and spin my wheels. I actually watched you do that. So
that's awesome that he.
Oh yeah, man. I like to get pictures from people that I've carried out.
And that makes you feel good because you taught him. You didn't teach him everything. He went out and learned it on his own some as well. But
that's exactly right.
You laid down the fundamentals for him to go out and do it.
Right. You know, well, they're paying you money, and they're paying you for your experience, and and money's tight these days. I mean, Lord knows gas is getting higher and everything else, and all your bills. But when you have that money invested in equipment on the front of your boat, you want to be as efficient and proficient as you can with that stuff. You want it. You especially people that are married. I've carried several people out, and they're just like, man, my wife's on my rear end. I ain't caught any fish. I got all this money in the front. And, I've got to start catching some fish. And I'm like, hey, let's show you what I know, and let's see. Hopefully, we can catch some fish.
Exactly. And that I've got 3 or 4 clients that I've taken out. They've gone out since then on their home lakes, and like you said, they send you pictures or say, hey, I'm smoking them.
I like it. I'm jealous. I'm like, man, hey, that's what I want to say.
Yeah.
Matt Singley's asking, what lakes do y'all guide on in Alabama, including John? Shallow, you're guiding on Weiss.
Yeah,
Weiss and Neely.
Weiss and Neely Henry. I plan on taking my captain's license this fall, and I'll be guiding on Guntersville.
There you go, Guntersville. That's going to be a good. I would really like for you to learn Guntersville where I can come up there and catch some fish, Shallow. I'll be honest with you.
Come on.
That thing is overwhelming. I've been on it several times, and it is. There's some giant fish up there too, man.
My first 5 or 6 times, I did terrible. I don't know if I caught more than 10 keepers.
I believe it.
Once I started figuring out, this lake is amazing. There's
so
much.
Oh,
and there's so many.
It is right. And Matt, I guide in Miller's Ferry and Alabama River, and Demopolis on the Warrior River there on the Tom Bigby. John doesn't do too much guiding. He guides around his house, man. He fishes several different lakes. He picks and chooses when he guides, and
he does
sometimes
electronics training.
Right, he does a lot of that. He does a lot of electronics training, Matt. But yeah, I want you to learn Guntersville for sure. I've seen some videos of a bunch of 3-pounders come out of there, and
there's some giants in that lake, and come up this winter. Come up in November.
Oh yeah, I'll be ready to go. Like I said, I've been under those causeways and seen all those fish, and
I'm not knocking those guys. That's an awesome way to fish, and you meet a lot of great people doing that. But I've never been much of a causeway.
Yeah, I don't want to follow those crowds either. I'd rather go get some stumps on a river channel somewhere. And hey.
Yeah, I like to get away from the crowd and kind of do my own thing. And
right.
I want to go look at them big deep flats where it dumps off into the river. See if we can't find some big hybrids.
Right, I've seen those up there. I haven't been up river a lot there. My buddy Shane Welch, they built a bridge there, and he was there for several years there, and catching bass and watching the bass, and it's so fertile, as far as bass and crappie. It is a fertile waterway, the Tennessee River. Of course, you got Chickamauga and all that through Chattanooga and the Tennessee River.
I think it's. We really haven't had a big tournament here since LiveScope came out.
Right.
But I really think if the time was right and everything come out right, you could see a 18, 19-pound bag.
Oh, yeah. I firmly believe that. Alabama Crappie Trail is going to be there when?
January.
January. So hey, that if the weather's right, hey, that's got potential to.
If it rains and it sets up right, that could turn out to be a slugfest. I mean, it really could come out to be a 16+ pound bag to win on this lake then.
Right. You're exactly right.
You hit the right stretch and you get in the right creek that's got the muddy water and the fish are the right size, it could get really, really good.
Oh yeah. Man, we still got 60 people on here, guys. We've been on here an hour. Shiloh's done got in the dark. He's on the front of
Give me
on his porch.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn my porch light on. Give me 1 second.
He done got in the dark. We're gonna go a few more minutes, guys. We're talking about Gunnersville right now, and Byron Warco's talking about don't underestimate the Coosa River. Nobody's underestimating it. I promise you.
No, that's a little better. I love the Coosa River.
I do too.
The headwaters of the Coosa, Weiss and Neely, they're great.
Oh yeah. In Lay Lake, Jeff Jowers, he's been catching some fish all summer down there, guiding. I can't remember the name of him.
All the way down the Coosa is awesome.
Well, that's what feeds the Alabama River, guys. I mean, that and the Tallapoosa, that's what dumps in the Alabama River.
Yeah, I think that Weiss, you're starting to see some really big fish start to come out of it.
I think it's recovering too.
It is.
Growing up, it used to be the crappie capital of the world. When I was growing up, and a lot of trolling was going on, and they were catching a lot of numbers. It takes.
The numbers are there. Like I said, Tim and I fished there Sunday, and every brush pile we fished was loaded. I mean,
that's awesome. Yeah, I think you're going to hit that cycle. Maybe it's about that time for those fish to.
Yeah, I mean, I had 14.5 for a tournament this past spring there. Threadgill and Phillips won there the week before with just over 13. So it's really it's getting way better than it was.
Oh yeah. And I like to see Alabama. Like I said, Alabama is not struggling by no means. And the good thing about it, guys, I share this a lot with the show. What we talk about on CrappieKast, 90% of people across the country can relate to what kind of fishing we're talking about. God knows I love Mississippi, but it's different there. Texas is different. The fish set up different. I'm not saying it's easier fishing, but the pattern's more predictable in Texas. I mean, just for people I know that's went out there, these river systems will humble you big time. I mean, Shiloh will tell you, they'll hit you where it hurts sometimes.
They'll punch you square in the teeth.
They sure will, and I love it because it's not different. So it's a lot different. Excuse me.
The Coosa River's no joke, and one day they're firing, and the next day it's like, what happened here?
Yeah, we were discussing Jacob Myers. We went to lunch the other day, and he was laughing at the last show when you talk about the Coosa turnaround. He's like, Shiloh has all these sayings, and he has a new one every week.
I'll tell you what, that came from John Fulmer right there. That Coosa turn, and he goes, and I never heard of it. And we went to Jordan for the first time, and we fished Neely and we fished Weiss, and both of them. You didn't have the turn. It was the fall or early spring, so they were eating.
Right.
John goes, "You're about to figure out what this Coosa turn is all about." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" The first
awesome.
Probably 50 fish I casted at, followed it all the way to the trolling motor, and then just turned around. Like, see ya.
Oh yeah. We had a lot of Seminole. It was so funny. You would throw in a piece of timber with 30 fish on it, and you throw it, all of them just kind of nose up at it and look, and here come a little fat boy from the bottom of the pack screaming at it. He's going to swallow it. You're like, where are you coming from? Yeah. And me and Kari was sitting there like, you couldn't predict what they were going to do, but each piece of timber was different. The black, there's so much. They got different personalities,
Every fish does, but then when John probably might have text or something, but I texted him after that and I said, "This is stupid. How do you get these fish to eat?" And I was so frustrated on Lake Jordan that it wasn't even funny.
I believe it. Yeah, it can humble you, man. Like I said, it's not the good thing about like Demopolis and Miller's Ferry, you run to a lot of fish this time of year that doesn't want to eat, but usually when you find them, you can get some of them talked into eating. So
like you're talking about Demopolis, you can go up real shallow and you catch. I think your picture you posted that you caught last year, a lot of them were whites, right?
Oh, they'll get shallow. Yeah. They're so shallow. When you set the hook, mud will come up. Yeah, I mean that is no joke. They're 2 foot deep.
That is my style right there.
It is. We can go in there in some of those parks and we'll go do it. You know, September. I've caught my limit of 60 fish in a 2-acre pond. You know, I mean, just all you do is go in circles. Just
Yep. It looks like you. I've had some tournaments like that where
that's awesome.
Look at your tracks and you're like, well, we were racing today.
Exactly. It looked like a round track race.
Yeah, you just kept going in circles all day. So,
man, I hope I didn't miss any questions, guys. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We've had 50 people still on here. We've been on here an hour, guys. As always, I appreciate it. I'm going to thank all my sponsors after the show. To get us going, I have to make sure we covered all our topics. CT Ward Power Sports, Alpha Plumbing, One Call Heating and Air, Power Brakes, Mr. Chad Clifton, RMC Mechanical, Andalusia Marine, and Steyr Arms. They keep this thing ticking, and they're supporting us, and I appreciate each and every one of them. Yeah. I try to thank them during the week, and Shiloh's supposed to get his boat back next week, so hopefully we'll get an update on some Weiss Lake fish. And
hey, about those sponsors, how's have you shot that Steyr yet?
Nope, I haven't put a scope on it. It's sitting over there in the case.
Sounds like a case queen to me.
No, Lord, no. I'm gonna break it out. I'm actually gonna hunt some this year. It's a Steyr Scout 308, and I haven't decided what scope I'm gonna go with. But there's a lot of people that enjoy crappie fishing, and a lot of people that enjoy hunting. So I'm glad Steyr Arms is on board with us. So.
Well, most of your crappie fishermen are hunters as well, too.
Exactly right. It coincides. So I appreciate Darren Bircher's great conversation here every week, man. Appreciate it, Darren. I appreciate all y'all support. No kidding, guys. It makes this easy for us to do every week. You know, Shiloh shares information. He filled in for John. John's getting ready for the Dippy Outdoors tournament, the kids tournament Saturday. Y'all need to tune in to John. Maybe John will be sharing some stuff. They're expecting 100 kids down there, guys, and that's the future of our sport. Get these kids off these consoles and this game and PlayStations and crap and getting them fishing. And we're going to keep on doing it. Shiloh, hang out after the show here, buddy, and I'll talk to you. And I appreciate everybody tuning in. And we'll see y'all next Thursday.